And so I'd love to start with a great question. It's really simple. I'm so glad you joined me today, Rob. Every realtor has sold plenty of houses, but what's one moment where when you started with this business, that you finally realized that it's not so much about selling the house anymore as it is in helping people find home? Tell me one of those stories.
Absolutely. Well, probably the single, um, uh, most transformative to me was kind of early on in my career, and I had a woman who was actually an African American woman, and she was 80 some odd years old and had never owned a home before and had a desire to, own something, before she passed. And, she couldn't afford much, at the time, at the time, the entry level home in where we were was, kind of $100,000 was kind of the baseline number in terms of what you could afford. And she could afford probably like 85,000. Right. So she was kind of scratching at the bottom of the barrel, and so we went out and we looked in a lot of places, and there were a lot of places where we went where I would not sell my mother a home, so it took several weeks, and this was not before the age of the internet, but this was definitely before the age of the internet empowered buyers. So there was a lot of education going on. There was a lot of hunting and pecking and searching and all of that. And then one day, we found this little place, and the skies parted, and the angels sang, and the light shone down on the living room, and we found the place, and there was nothing so transformative to her, nor so transformative to me as the day when I was able to hand the keys to that woman. Now, a couple of years later, she passes away. And, I went to the funeral, and her family all came up to me and said, how much that meant to her. And she had the ability to pass something on to her family, a form of wealth, right? That she had never had, and that no one in her family had ever had. And so, her family did not live in Houston, which is where I am. So it wasn't like, I could build referring, a referral chain of future transactions or anything like that. But I honestly think a lot of times about the ripple effect of what that might have had to her, nieces and grandchildren and so on that were living in Florida or living in St. Louis or living in LA or wherever they were, right? Um, and it's certainly something that motivates me every day. There's times when it is very difficult to pick up the phone and call people, but that warmth that I felt is just a drug, and you're chasing it every day.
Well, I think that's a fantastic piece where you're kind of showing the human element of what it is that we're doing on a daily basis. Because it's not just about helping people, you know, even though they are investments in essence, because she's investing in her future. And we try to look at every buyer as an investor. They might be investing in their first home, it might be their last home, it might actually be an investment home, but they're all really investing. That's one of the biggest investments in their lives. And I think you actually put a really big human element to this, which is something that I think gets missed a lot, that they need to have a place. They need to have a place that they can use, that they can call home, that they can have Thanksgiving at, that they can celebrate Christmas with their family or Hanukkah or whatever it is that they're trying to celebrate. And you just can't do that in a place that's not yours. I mean,
Right.
you can, but it's not, the memories are so much sweeter when you can put a hole in the wall and hang the garland.
Absolutely, absolutely, and taking it from the human element and putting it, more on just kind of a solid. I talk to so many people that are smart people, and that thing, in many cases, they try to look at every angle, and they sometimes feel like they've crunched the numbers and they overanalyze things, and they say, well, I can afford to buy a home, I can afford to invest in real estate, but if I just rent something and maybe I can rent something for $1,000 less than my housing payment would be, and I throw that $1,000 into the market, how much better can I do? Right. And the Fed, has run a number of studies on this, and they've realized that the average homeowner has 44 times the net worth of a non-homeowner. And there's a number of reasons for that. But the biggest one is the forced savings aspect of a mortgage, right? When you buy a mortgage, and I just had this discussion with my brother. He was thinking about selling his home and doing exactly what I'm talking about. But what I pointed out to him was that, when you have that mortgage payment, you have to make that payment every month, right? And it's very easy to sit down and say, oh, I'm going to throw an extra $1,000 into the market every month. But the reality is, most people don't, right? And over time, that compounds. And so that's where a lot of people get their wealth. And then when you add to that the aspect of, yeah, you can paint the walls, you can do some landscaping around the house, you can have a place that you own that is your own little nook of home, and oh, by the way, the mortgage payment isn't going up every third year because you have a landlord. Um, you factor all those things in, plus the reality that owning a home still remains part of the American dream.
Yeah, I think that what we
That's
miss with this so many times is that the stability that it brings to own a home. I mean, the stability is amazing because really what it's doing is it's really guiding you to make sure that you're setting roots in a community that you want to be in. It's really giving you so much more than just a place, just a roof, just a place to call home and eat your dinner at. It's a place that really provides you with a sense of satisfaction and ownership. I never fixed up any rentals I lived in. In fact, I was probably a little rough on them. But I would say that overall, all my houses I've taken tremendous pride in. And I've taken tremendous pride in actually trying to fix them up and keep them, looking good and even improving them so that I can improve my lifestyle. I think that what I've learned through real estate is that whether you're buying a home or building a home or refinancing a home, what you're really trying to do is you're trying to create a sense of stability for your family and really make something big out of it. And I'd say that the stories of the people when they're buying these homes are really what keeps us doing it again because I mean, let's put it this way, the mortgage is never the goal. It's the life afterwards.
right.
And that's what motivates me to keep doing this is kind of serving these families and helping them get into better places. What's another story that you can think of? What other experiences do you believe you gleaned from that story with this one lady that helped you as you started communicating that with other buyers and sellers?
Well, just speaking on a very personal level, I married a woman that had children, and when we got married, uh, one of the children was I think 11 years old at the time, and so as a result of his experiences in life, he had moved from place to place to place, from city to city to city, had never really had much friends, was kind of introverted, those kinds of things. And when we got married, we bought a home, and I made a solemn promise to him that where we moved, he was not going to have to move again until after he graduated high school, and so that he could have the confidence that he could make friends, that he could know that the school that he went to in sixth grade was going to be the same school that he went to in seventh grade, and that he was going to be able to build some relationships that he could carry on further in life. And I held that promise. He's now 32 years old, and so he had that stability and the confidence that comes with that. And I think that I would like to think that that helped build the foundation for what he is today.
Wow, it's fantastic. I think I mean, I think listening to you and hearing what you have to say, there's so many stories of families that we've worked with, whether they're first-time home buyers trying to get that first home that they've never owned before, or whether it's really trying to, get something that can turn into a source of wealth for the family. It's one of those things that really just takes a little bit of time to understand and listening to people. I'll share a real quick story of somebody, and then now that Randy has joined us, maybe he can share some of his stuff too. But what I've seen is I helped a family, and I'm just going to call her Allison and him Jason, just to use names. Um, they had a home that they wanted to buy. They found this absolute dream home. It wasn't their first home. It was a home that they were really just so invested in. And the experience that I learned from them as we were, going through this is how important that stability of the home was. They were living in a home, they found this beautiful home, and they'd been turned down through several places in town as far as how to get where they wanted to go. And I showed them, I found a way to make some creative ways to help them by listening to them and hearing how important this home was. And we were able to get them into the house. And the transformation it made for the family is so amazing what it did for them. But even more than that, what it did is allow them to start building wealth through real estate. And they were able to take the home that they had departed, convert it to a rental, make more out of it. And then what they did a couple years later is they found a beautiful mountain retreat that they wanted as a second home. Once again, they'd gotten to the point where they couldn't figure it out. And so, we figured out how to do it, how to get them there. And they bought the home. I was able to help them find this home and buy the home, not find it, they found it themselves, but buy the home through the financing strategies we put together. And now it's a mountain retreat for them. They have people coming out there all the time doing great things. They had the Boy Scouts out not too long ago. They have a wedding venue on the property now. So just think of what that investment has turned into just by helping them get into that dream home, first of all, creating a wealth of positivity and moving in there. So, Randy, you're new to the conversation here. So glad you joined us. Tell us more about that one family that you saw that where you learned that real estate was more than just the transaction. Tell us about that family. Which one did you serve?
You got me quick there. Um, I'm trying to think of which family that would be. Um, oh yeah. So there was this one client of mine that we were looking at properties, and one of the most important thing was for this mother who wanted to find good school zone for their kids. And we were showing properties around, and what really intrigued them the most is, first of all, I can say this, I won't mention his name, but he's a regional manager for State Farm Insurance. And what was really intriguing about that is that that gentleman was actually looking for a home that was not close to the water. He was moving from Georgia, um, and the wife wanted a house with a pool. And the most intriguing thing about it was to find them a community that had kids their own the same ages. Um, and so, as I call them every day, they say, "Did you know that the neighbors right across the street from us had kids the same age as us?" Obviously, I did not, but what I did know was the community was a community where whenever there was a Halloween event, all the parents had Halloween activities in their front yard, trick-or-treating, I guess you could call it. So the whole community would do trick-or-treating event. The whole community would do a 4th of July event around the clubhouse, that kind of stuff. So one of the most important thing was it wasn't selling them a home that was just about being close to the school zone. It was selling them the lifestyle to where they can enjoy like-minded people in their community that they really enjoy the most. So
That's a great point. And that makes me think of a lot of people that I've helped recently, had several single moms recently divorced,
yeah,
new chapters in their lives, and they've had to rebuild from what they're trying to do. And I've got one right now that is in the process of trying to rebuild. A difficult divorce, credit got hit really hard, all sorts of crazy things as far as that's concerned. But what's so awesome about being able to serve these families as they're making this transition or flipping the page in the chapter is that really what we're doing is yes, we're providing them with a source of wealth. Yes, we're helping them with a transaction, but it's such a difference maker in their lifestyle because now they can put roots down and they can really dig deeper. And I'm really interested in these conversations because it's this is where we make a difference in this real estate business with the community. Yes, we have transactions. That's how we get fed. That's how we
yeah.
have to feed our families. But it's the people. It's the people that you remember that are something like that. So if you guys are listening out there today and you're thinking about buying or selling a home, we've got Rob here. He's in Houston. We've got Randy. He's here in the
Florida.
Melbourne area of Florida. They're going to be sitting on the edge of their seat waiting for your phone call if you guys want to talk to them. But they can certainly help you. They got some really good like minds when it comes to this. Now, tell me a little bit about your conversations with some of these people, because when people are moving to your area, if they were moving from, let's say, Dallas to Houston, it's a different gig, or from Orlando to Melbourne, it's a different gig altogether making that move and that transition. What would be, as you're listening to these buyers, and maybe you've had one who's done this, what do you sense is some of the educational pieces that you have to prepare them for as you're getting set up for this transition? Because the lifestyle is different.
Yeah, I'll go. I'll say it this way, the last transaction that I had was actually a gentleman that moved from Seattle, Washington,
That's a big
uh,
move.
to Florida. And he actually drove it a couple
Oh, wow.
days to get
That's
back.
like opposite corners of the
One part of the United States all the way down to Florida, right?
world.
And
And
what
not
was it?
just geographically, by the way.
Yeah, yeah. So what did we see here? We saw weather changes is different. The politics was different. The culture was different. The house, the style, the lifestyle that we have here in Florida was different, right? There was a lot of difference, and he relocated to work for an engineering firm. Um, one of the things that he said is, man, your weather is so nice in Florida here compared to Seattle, Washington. Your people are kind of more friendlier here, and so there was a lot of cultural differences and what he has to adapt to, which, he seemed to like it more here than Seattle, Washington. I personally haven't been there yet to see what it's like, but he basically said that's a big difference. And he seems to love it a lot.
Well, that's good. That's good.
Yeah, that's a
But that
big
is a
change.
massive change. I mean,
That's
Seattle
a
to
massive
Florida.
change.
Oh my
Culture,
goodness.
weather, everything. It's a big
Hmm.
difference.
Hmm.
Yeah.
What about you, Rob? What have you seen with that?
So yeah, Houston is a pretty unique market in that it is massive, and I don't mean in terms of population. I mean in terms of geography. One of my favorite statistics about the city of Houston is the geographic footprint of Houston. If you were to take that footprint and you were to take the footprint of Baltimore, Detroit, and Miami, you could fit the footprint of all three of those cities into the footprint of Houston. I specialize in a market called Cypress, which is just a portion of Houston, and yet my submarket consists of roughly 1 million people. And
Wow.
so, when you come from, say, Beaumont, Texas, or you come from, St. Louis, Missouri, or you come from someplace, you're used to, maybe living in the suburb, maybe driving into downtown, doing those kinds of things. We're so massive geographically that we have what we would call a bunch of edge cities. We, of course, have our downtown central business district. We have another business district called the Galleria that has as much office space that if it were a downtown, it would fit between Cleveland and Pittsburgh. That's just one submarket. We have, 7 to 8 other submarkets. And so what happens is when they come to Houston, you have, whether it is in Cypress or whether it's in Katy or whether it's in the Woodlands or whether it's, in Sugarland or any of a variety of other areas, the vast majority of people come, they buy a home in a submarket, they live their life in that submarket, and yet, if they want to go to a play, if they want to go to an Astros game, a Texans football game, they want to do, there's plenty of live entertainment in their submarket, but many times there will be a major touring comedian that's in another area. And so those will be the times that you make the drive, the 45-minute drive to another submarket to attend one of those things. And that those are kind of the days that will spice up their life. But 85 to 90% of their life will be lived within the submarket that they buy in. And so that's a little bit different way of living than if you were coming from, say, Colorado Springs.
Yeah, no doubt with that. So and here's the thing with it, to build off of this point is stuff that they're used to in the place that they're coming from may be a terribly bad decision in the areas that you're coming to. And so what's one decision that you kind of looked at with some of these people that you talked people out of because it was not a good idea. I can tell you one right now in my place, and I'd love to hear yours, but I was dealing with a guy just last night by the name of Nelson. And Nelson was in the middle of trying to figure out a refinance. And I told him not to do it. I told him not to do it. And that would have been counterintuitive because I could have talked him into it. But I didn't. I told him no. I said, this doesn't accomplish your goals. This doesn't get you what you're looking to accomplish. It doesn't solve your debt. It doesn't change your cash flow enough to make it work. And I'm going to tell you that it doesn't make sense for you to do this right now. Now, I'm happy to do it if you still want to, but I'm going to try to talk you out of it because mathematically it doesn't improve. It doesn't give you enough tangible benefit for me to actually help you. And I think that that actually set it aside. It cost me a transaction, cost me income. But at the same point in time, it was the right decision because,
Well, you build trust. You
well,
build this
yeah, you're
trust right
building
there.
trust, but more than that, what you're doing is it's the right thing, whether you get paid for it or not.
Exactly.
And so, what's one of those things that you've had to talk a buyer out of or a seller out of just to make sure that you're protecting them?
Well, for me, it's sometimes the property that they're looking to purchase. Sometimes I'll tell you this example. There was a lady that really fell in love with this property because of the size of the kitchen. She loves to cook, and it was a beautiful house, but the renovation work that was done to the property was not in quality work. And I kid you not, I said to her, "This is not the home for you." And she goes, "But if you want it, I'll put it on the contract for you." And she still wanted it. And I told her, I said, "That's fine." So we did a home inspection. Come to find out during home inspection, there was a lot of issues that she could not take care. And luckily, I was able to call the inspector and say, "Hey, listen, we're going to cancel this inspection. We're going to stop it." He started the process in the middle of 1 hour of doing inspection, and he says all the issues that was with the property. We canceled the inspection. She was crying. She was emotionally involved with the property. And I said, "Don't worry, I will find you another property." We were able to get 50% credit of the home inspection and apply it to another home. Then we found her the second home that she looked at and she loved. She bought it. We did a home inspection, just three little items, nothing big. They're kind of cosmetic work. One was a garbage disposal, wasn't working. The other one was a little broken screen, easy fix. I went out and about and I just got a plumber to change the garbage disposal for her after closing, fixed the screen for her. Cost me what, maybe $300, $500. Got it all taken care for her, and she was a happy lady. She goes, Randy, if it wasn't for you, I would have probably been unhappy with the other house, but you talked me out of the deal. Not out of the deal because she still went through the deal, but talked her out of the inspection and telling her not to buy the property, you know?
It's
And
a
she was
tough
emotionally
conversation.
attached to it. She was very emotional. I mean, she was crying. She was just attached. She was like, I don't want to keep shopping for a home. I said, this is not the right home for you. And then, the second property that she bought, till today, she tells me, she goes, I couldn't be happy any happier. I'm so glad that you helped me through this.
That's a big piece because that's the part of that people miss when they're working with a really good
Yeah.
realtor is that you're actually helping them build wealth by saving them from themselves. And I'm sure you got a story like that too, Rob, don't you?
I do, and I won't tell you an individual story, but what I will say is when I first got into real estate, I got into real estate on the commercial side, and commercial real estate is a very different animal from residential real estate. When you're dealing with commercial real estate, the deal is the deal is the deal. The bottom line is the bottom line, and it is a very cold, bloodless, analytical, profession, basically. And so many times when I'm dealing with a buyer of a home, you'll get especially with the husbands or with the men, they will want to get down, they'll want to grind down that pencil, and they'll want to overanalyze everything, and they'll want to make sure they're getting a good deal and all of that. um, and what they don't realize is how emotional of a transaction that it is. When you fall in love with a home, you become personally invested in it, not just financially, but emotionally, because that is going to be where you're going to have a roof over your kids' heads. That is going to be probably within driving distance of the church you and your family are going to go to, and build a network that is going to weave the fabric of their lives. And so that's what's been so appealing to me. Why I got out of commercial real estate and got into residential real estate was just the impact that we're able to have on people's lives. And that's so much more fulfilling than helping some hedge fund manager squeeze out an extra, tenth on a return.
So I think this is great, and I think we're going to wrap up at least today's online conversation. We might have a little bit more after this, but the big piece with this is that I think if someone's listening today and they're thinking about buying a home or maybe even selling a home, the one thing that they need to take away from the story is that this is a every home that you purchase is going to be an emotional decision. That's what I'm hearing from both of you.
Yep.
Everybody's reacting that way. And life is not about the mortgage. It's about the life that comes after the mortgage. It's not about the transaction. It's about the life that comes after the transaction. And making sure that you're set up for that makes a huge difference in that. If you were to give some parting words to somebody who's going to be looking at this podcast on the YouTube channel 5 years from now, what would be the one thing that you'd want them to know?
Buying
I
buying a
mean,
home is actually, sorry. Buying a home would be actually the best investment you would do for building your wealth, but it's not only about that. It's about the lifestyle, and it feels so great to have ownership. And I'll put it to you in my own words. When I bought my home, I bought it because I wanted to have make sure I had a roof over my head, my wife's, and my children. But one day I came home and watched my wife work in the garden, and I could see how much she appreciate that everything that she's doing in the yard is for a peace of mind for her, and it's her property. It's not a rental property. You're not doing, if you're renting a property, you're not doing it on a rentals properties for a landlord. You're doing it for yourself. And I felt the same way what Rob said earlier, that for me, it was about negotiating and getting the best deal because we as men want to make sure we get the best deal out there. The numbers got to work, right? But for the spouse, they want to make sure that anything they do, they're always doing it. Like when we bought this property, she's always decorating it for the season, 4th of July, Father's Day, Mother's Day, Christmas, for what is Thanksgiving. Every season I see change decoration changing around my house because she wants to make it feel like a home, right? We buy a house, but our spouse makes it a home. So I always recommend you buy a home.
Okay. What about you, Rob?
I mean, there's a reason they call it the American dream, right? And I've seen shifts in society today where, so many people feel like they're getting behind because of the way the economy is going, because of the way they feel like Washington is treating home ownership, and it's just making it so much harder to do. And one of the things that scares me about some of the rhetoric that I'm hearing is that uh, fewer young people are feeling like they want to buy a home. And when you don't own a home, you have no investment in the country in which you live. And so I think it's important personally. I think it's important for your own family, but it's also important for the country because you know, Marco Rubio went to Munich a couple of years ago and had a very uncomfortable conversation in a security conference with leaders of European countries to say, look, we can all talk about military strategy, but do you have people that trust and love their country enough to put on a uniform to fight for it? And so home ownership is the kind of thing that allows people to feel like they are an American, that they are a Floridian, that they are a Texan, that gives them some sense of purpose. And so, I will tell you that as much as you might want to have that avocado toast, as much as you might want to have that vacation in Cozumel, there is nothing like owning a home and what that does for your sense of purpose, for your sense of community, and for your own mental well-being.
I think the best thing about all these is really the stories that come behind this and the stories that we encounter and the parts that we play in these stories. The place that we can give this family, like you mentioned at the beginning, Rob, where she had nothing and she got a first house and it was very humble, but it was her house. And the house that you're talking about, Randy, where you actually help your family create a sense of ownership and be able to change things around, make it very homey for the seasons. So you guys, as you're listening online today, if what's one of your takeaways? I'd love to hear about it. You can put it in the comments below. I'd certainly love to have the opportunity to hear from you and share that around. And by all means, if you're going to Houston, you need to talk to Rob. If you're going to Melbourne, you need to talk to Randy. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.